It's strange how normal it's become to see someone post how much they made this month, and within seconds, it feels like information you were supposed to have too. Not because you asked for it, not because it affects you directly, but because once it's out there, it starts sitting in your mind like a reference point. You scroll a little more. Someone celebrating a big win. Someone announcing a new income level. Someone showing a lifestyle that looks already figured out. And none of it feels unusual anymore. That's the part that's easy to miss. Because when something becomes normal to see, it quietly becomes something you measure yourself against. And the moment that happens, money stops being something you manage privately. It starts becoming something you respond to publicly. Your decisions start changing. What you share, what you aim for, what feels like progress, all of it starts getting influenced by what's invisible. Because most of what you're reacting to isn't actually built for you to understand. It's built to be seen. You're not just dealing with money. And once those two get mixed together, it becomes harder to tell the difference between what's real progress and what just looks like it. Now think about this. If money is supposed to be something that grows quietly over time, why does everything around it feel like it needs to be announced the moment it happens? That's where things start to separate, not by income, but by behavior. It doesn't start as a decision. No one sits down and thinks, let me make my money visible. It just happens. A number gets shared, a milestone gets posted, a small win turns into something public, and it feels harmless. Sometimes it even feels deserved. But the moment money becomes visible, it stops being just yours. Because now it's being interrupted, measured, judged, tracked by people you know and people you don't. Here's the part that doesn't get said out loud. Not everyone watching you is neutral. Some are comparing, some are calculating, some are quietly adjusting how they see you. And none of that shows up in the comments. So what felt like sharing progress quietly turns into exposing position. And once that happens, something subtle changes. You stop moving based only on what makes sense. You start becoming aware of how it might look. Not consciously, but enough to shift your behavior. Now think about how early most things get shared. An idea, a plan, a direction, before it's even stable, before it's even tested. And once it's out there, it starts carrying weight it didn't have before. Expectations, questions, opinions, all attached to something that wasn't ready yet. So now you're not just building it, you're carrying the pressure of it being seen. And that slows down things in ways you don't immediately notice. Because execution works differently in private. There's no need to explain, no need to update, no need to justify, just movement. But once something becomes visible too early, it splits your focus. Part of you is building, the other part is aware that it's being watched. That's why not everything benefits from being shared. Some things grow better without attention. Some things move faster without validation. And some things only work when no one knows they're happening yet. Because privacy isn't about hiding, it's about keeping control while something is still forming. You ever notice how expensive everything looks online, but no one ever shows how it's actually paid for? Cars, trips, apartments, upgrades, all presented the same way, like they were simply acquired. No timeline, no structure, no context, just the result. And after a while, your brain stops asking questions. It just starts accepting it as normal. But there's a difference most people don't pause long enough to see. Something can look owned and still be financed, leased, borrowed, or temporarily sustained. And when that difference isn't visible, the perception fills in the gap. So what you are really comparing yourself to isn't someone's financial position. It's a version of it, one that's been cleaned up, compressed, and presented without friction. No monthly obligations, no trade-offs, no pressure behind it, just the highlight. Now think about what that does over time. You're seeing outcomes without ever seeing the structure that holds them up. So naturally, your expectations start forming around the incomplete information. And that's where the distortion starts. Because now, you're not measuring progress against reality. You're measuring it against presentation. Then comparison kicks in, not loudly, quietly. You start noticing where you are, next to where someone else appears to be, even if you're at completely different stages, even if the timeline doesn't match, even if the situations aren't even close. But the brain doesn't process all that. It just sees distance. So now, your beginning feels like it's behind. Not because it is, but because you are placing it next to something that's already been built. And that creates pressure that doesn't belong to you. Pressure to catch up, to accelerate, to close a gap that might not even be real. All based on something that was never fully shown in the first place. So what looks like motivation can quietly turn into misalignment because you are reacting to how something appears instead of how it actually works. It's subtle, but it happens fast. You earn a little more than usual, and almost immediately, something in your life adjusts to match it. Not planned, just expected. The place you stay starts to feel temporary. The things you use start to feel replaceable. What used to be enough starts to feel like a phase you've outgrown, and nothing about it feels reckless. It feels like progression. But look at the timing. The income just changed. Everything else follows right after, almost like it was waiting. So now the increase never really becomes excess. It gets absorbed quietly. There is no moment where it feels like a decision. No clear point where you say, I'm increasing my expenses. It just happens alongside everything else. So the gap between what you earn and what you keep never really gets a chance to widen. Now add another layer to it, the speed. Everything around you is moving quickly. New ideas, new strategies, new moves people are making. And it creates this sense that timing matters more than understanding. Like if you don't act now, you are already late. So decisions start happening faster than they should. Not because they make sense, but because they feel urgent. And urgency doesn't always come from reality. Sometimes it comes from exposure. Seeing something repeatedly makes it feel like it's already happening everywhere, even when it's not. So now, you're not just responding to your own situation, you're responding to momentum that isn't yours. And that's where discipline usually gets skipped. Not ignored, skipped. Because discipline is slow. It doesn't look like movement. It doesn't feel like progress in the moment. But trends do. They create the illusion that something is happening. So it becomes easier to follow what's visible than to stay with what actually builds. And over time, that shift in timing changes outcomes, because when speed replaces structure, progress starts to look real before it actually is. It's easy to tell when something looks like money. it's harder to tell when it actually functions like it. Because most of what gets seen is the result, not the conditions that keep it there. A number looks impressive, a purchase looks like progress, a lifestyle looks stable, but none of those things explain how it can last. And that's the part that really gets shown. Not because it doesn't exist, but because it doesn't translate visually. Sustainability doesn't have a highlight. It doesn't create moments. It doesn't give you something to post. So what gets attention is what can be displayed, not what can be maintained. And over time, that flips the focus from can this hold to does this look right? Now add information into that environment, advice, threats, breakdowns, all moving at the same speed as everything else. And on the surface, it looks helpful, structured, confident, certain. But not everything labeled as guidance is built around your outcome. Some of it is built around engagement, because attention has value, and anything that keeps you reading keeps that value moving. So information starts to compete, not based on accuracy, but based on how quickly it can pull you in. And that creates a kind of noise that feels like progress. Strategy doesn't move like that. It's quieter, more selective, less reactive. It doesn't change direction. It doesn't need to be updated daily because it's built to hold, not to keep up. So the difference becomes clear over time. What looks active versus what actually sustains. And most of what stands out doesn't always stay. It usually shows up the same way. Simple. A way to make money that doesn't seem to require much movement. No long setups, no real delay, just a clear path from where you are to where you want to be. And that's what makes it hard to question, because it removes friction, but friction is usually where the structure is. So when something feels smooth from the start, it's worth asking what's been taken out of the process. Is it time, effort, risk, or just your visibility into how it actually works? Because most fast money follows a pattern. It enters quickly and leaves the same way, because it was never built on something that holds. The faster something moves, the less time there is to examine it. So urgency becomes the driver. Act now, don't miss it. Everyone's already doing it. And once urgency is in place, clarity usually steps back, because you are no longer evaluating, you're responding. Now think about who benefits from that. Not the person trying to understand it, but the system being moved forward by quick decisions. And sometimes you're not participating in the opportunity, you are part of what keeps it going. After a while, it becomes less about what people are doing and more about what you stop reacting to. The same posts are still there. Income upgrades, wins, opportunities, advice. Nothing really changes on the surface, but something changes in how you process it. You stop treating everything as a signal. You start seeing it as noise with patterns. Not everything needs a response. Not everything needs to be understood immediately. Not everything needs to be part of your direction. And that's where things begin to separate. Because once you are not reacting, your timing stabilizes. Decisions slow down. Moves become less visible. Progress stops needing confirmation. And what used to feel like missing out starts to feel like distance from things that weren't aligned in the first place. Then another shift happens. You stop thinking about money in terms of moments and start noticing how it behaves over time. Sustainability doesn't announce itself, it just continues. And that's where the focus changes, from showing to holding, from reacting to structuring. No urgency, no comparison, no need to be seen, just consistency that isn't interrupted. And when that becomes normal, a lot of what used to feel important doesn't carry the same weight anymore. Because the goal was never to match what's visible. It was to build something that doesn't depend on being seen. And if you found this video helpful, and don't forget to share, like and subscribe for more videos like this one coming your way.